Good morning students, welcome back to Triveni Memorial Senior Secondary School online classes. Students, today we are going to start one of our another chapter from class 8 in history, that is Civilizing the Native and Educating the Nation. In this chapter, we are going to study that what are the approaches of various Orientalists regarding the education that's needed to be provided to the Indian people. Some were favor in providing Western education to Indians. On the other hand, some were against it. So we will study about that in this chapter. So let's begin, students. Firstly, as you can see, students, that what we have studied till now, or what we will try to understand in this chapter, is what are the implications of, what are the education implications for the students at that time. About that we are going to study in this chapter. What were the various cultural mission, education mission for people, what sort of cultural value, traditional values regarding that. So our first topic is how the British saw education. Okay, now see, British point of view regarding education and Indian point of view regarding education, both were quite different from each other. That is what we are going to study in this. We are going to study about the British point of view regarding education. What they believe that their ideas, their thoughts, their knowledge, Western education is more superior over Indian ideas, thoughts or knowledge. The next question is the tradition of Orientalism. Now what happened, students? There were various Orientalists who visited India from different part of the world, and they presented their views regarding what they felt regarding education, whether Western education should be given to Indians or Indian education like in Sanskrit text or in Arabic text, in what language they need to be taught. So different Orientalists provided their point of view, shared their point of view. So in this, as you can see, student, one of the Orientalists was there named Jones went, and he arrived in Calcutta, and he had an appointment with the judge of the Supreme Court in India. And along with the Orientalist, who is an Orientalist, I already told you, who used to share his views regarding the particular culture of a particular country, views regarding the culture of the people who are residing in a particular country. Along with the Orientalist, he was a linguist too. Now, who were linguists or who are linguists? Basically, linguists are those persons who have knowledge of more than two languages. For example, or in many languages, in different languages. For example, if a person has a knowledge of English, Hindi, Arabic, Sanskrit and many more languages, then that person is called as an linguist. Same is the case here. He is also a linguist. So what he said that he had studied Greek, he had studied English, he had studied French, he had studied Arabic language, Persian language, and now where he visited? He visited in India, and as he was an Orientalist, his job was to know the culture, was to know the tradition, the custom of Indians. And you know very well about this thing, that if you want to gain knowledge regarding a particular language of a particular place, the best way is to sit with the local people of that area. So what he prefers, he started sitting with the Brahmins, because in Indian society, Brahmins were considered as the most wise men and as the knowledgeable men. So he started sitting with them, and Brahmins taught him regarding the Sanskrit language, regarding Indian grammar, regarding Indian poetry. They discussed the various philosophy, various law, Indian religion, Indian politics, everything about India with him. So what, after discovering all this thing, what Jones discovered or what he found is that his interests were shared by an not only his perception is there regarding this, but some other British officials were also there who shared his interest or his point of view in Calcutta at that time. And one of the Englishman is there, and whose name is Henry Thomas Colebrook. He also preferred the viewpoint or the initiative of Jones. Now what they thought or what they said is, they said that the ancient Indian heritage and the Indian language, translating Sanskrit and Persian works into English. What does that mean? Basically, both this Englishman and this Orientalist Jones, they both were saying that nowadays, means at that time what was happening, the whole Indian text which was written in Sanskrit language, that was Indian language only, was converted into English language. So they were against it. But what both of them think, they think that if Britishers want to civilize Indians, if they want to provide education to Indian people, then rather than providing education in Western style, they needs to provide education in their own style, that is in Sanskrit language or in Arabic language or in the language, Prakrit language that these peoples, Indian people were using. And for getting more information, what they did, they referred or they studied all the sacred books of Indians, of the sacred books of Hindu and Muslims. Sacred books like Gita, Quran, Ramayana, Mahabharata, these are sacred books, and you know this thing very well. Indian people really followed what is mentioned in all sort of these sacred books. So for getting more information, they studied all sort of these sacred books, and they said that all the textual books that are meant for Hindus and Muslims, or that are meant for the future development of Indians, or in order to civilize Indian people, they needed to be taught in their own language rather than in Western language or rather than in English language. Thereafter, student, what happened? That they said that the institution should be set up to encourage the study of ancient Indian texts and teach Sanskrit and Persian literature and poetry. So what they are saying, in all the education institution, Sanskrit language should be taught, Arabic language should be taught, because this language is much familiar with Indians as compared to Western language, that is English. So that language needed to be implemented in all the institutions. So this is their point of view, and in this way what will happen, people will just or you can say people would just come more ahead, they will give their level best in the education field or in civilizing themselves, because what we are teaching them was their own culture, was their own tradition. And they also mention that this was the only way that now earlier Indian you can say culture, tradition was very much known, very much familiar, but it started declining with respect to time. If they want to, or India want to gain its glory, its heritage again, then this is the only solution, or this is the only way. Now what happened, they started promoting Arabic language, Persian language, Islamic law, and they started building different Hindu institutions so that more and more Indian could enter those institutions and can get education. For example, the Hindu college that was established in Banaras in 1791. And why this was established, or what was its main purpose? Again, the main purpose was that this was one of the institutions where all the textual books were mentioned in Sanskrit, and Sanskrit was the language of Indians. So this was one of the institution which helps in administrating the country and which attracts more and more Indians towards it, so that they can come and gain some education. Why? Because Sanskrit was their language. This was the feeling of this Orientalist, British Orientalist as well as some other Orientalist. Now let's move ahead. Next is grave errors of the East. Now what is this? Basically what happened, the British Orientalists do not, British officers do not agree with the version of educating Indians of Orientalist point of view. British officers started criticizing Orientalist point of view. We studied regarding Johnson and that British person also. What they said that all the education institution needs to provided with their textbook in British language, in English language only, and not in Sanskrit. And reason, what reason they gave for that? They said that they believe that English language is more superior as compared to Sanskrit language, and the knowledge, the level of knowledge, if Indian wants to know about the world, then they need to learn English. Why? Because at that time most of the poems, most of the dramas, most of the poetry is written in British language only, in English language only by the Britishers. So basically they want that instead of teaching Indians in Sanskrit language or in Arabic language, they needs to be taught in English language only, so that they can come to know what is happening in the world all around. Because mostly all the articles, all the writings were written in British language, were written in English language. And they also said that the Eastern language or the Indian language that people were speaking, that is an uncivilized, India is an uncivilized country, people are uncivilized, and they can be, or they could be, you can say, civilized only if they would be taught in English language. Now see what happened, like different Orientalists, different British officers also came, and one of the officers is Makali. Now what this person said, this person completely criticized or completely spoke against Sanskrit language, that is Indian language. What he said? He said that if a person would read whole Sanskrit text or whole sacred text and just read only one shelf of the British library, then that British, reading the one shelf of British library would be providing more information to the Indians as compared to reading Sanskrit language. That was his belief. So he believed that all the native, who were natives, natives were the people who used to reside at a particular place. So Indian were the natives because they were residing in India at that time. So what he said, that the whole literature that need to be taught to the Indians need not to be there in Arabic language or Sanskrit language, that needs completely to be taught in English language. And why that is there, that I already told you, because what he believe is that almost all philosophy, all important knowledge, advancement of technology, new innovations that were discovered by Britishers were all mentioned in British language, that is in English. And if Indian needs to be more technologically improved, if they need to be more advanced, they need to study this language, that is the British language anyhow. And he also said that once if Indians were started teaching with English language, they automatically built interest in English language, and they would start changing their taste, their culture, their preference, and they started accepting English as an language. So no problem would be there in future. So only British language, that is English language, needs to be introduced in all the education institution and not the Sanskrit or any other Indian language. And he even also stated that all the individual who want to go for higher education, they also needs to provide education in English language only. If some person is going for PhD, like you have heard about Mahatma Gandhi, he was in LLB. So if a person or an individual is going for higher education, that also need to be taught in British language, in English language, and not in Sanskrit or any other language. And they said that Indian language is a temple of darkness. Darkness is not going to overspell by teaching these people in Sanskrit language. They would overwhelm darkness only when they would be taught in British language, and that is English language. The next is education for commerce. Now what is that? East India Company, all of you are very well known about East India Company. East India Company in London sent an education dispatch to the Governor General in India, and now this dispatch is called as Wood's Dispatch. What is Wood's Dispatch? One of the scheme or dispatch sent by the East India Company to the Governor General in India, which was issued by Charles Wood. Now what this states that the education policy was to be followed in India is emphasized once again the practical benefits of the system of European learning as opposed to Oriental knowledge. Now what he said, or this Wood's dispatch system said, that as the Orientalist suggested that Indian need to be taught in Sanskrit language. They could be taught in Sanskrit language, but the thing is Indian language focused more on theoretical concepts and not on practical concepts, whereas we individuals are living in a practical society. On the other hand, British language is the language which focused more on practical aspects or practical concepts. So if we want to provide the real meaning of life to the Indians, the practical meaning of life to the Indians, then definitely they need to be taught. That is, all the education policies must be in English and not in Sanskrit or any other Indian language, because here he clearly criticized Indian language and told the practical point of view of teaching to the Indians in Western language. He said that that is more practical language. After that, what he said that if Indians would be taught in British language, then they will come to introduce themselves with one of the new project or term that is regarding commerce or that is regarding trade. People will learn new terms, how to involve themselves in trade, what are the various factors, how to involve themselves in commerce, and how they can enjoy the real sense of life, how they can incur more and more profit. And this would also help in enhancing and increasing their taste, their desires, and once they got attached with British language or English language, that would be automatically benefited the East India Company. That is, the taste and preference for Western good would increase, and automatically the trade perspective for East India Company or for Britishers would also increase. So that would leads to good production in Europe as well. Thereafter, what they said that moral character of an individual could be built more by teaching individuals and especially Indians in British language, in English language, and not in Indian language. So basically what they are saying, that morally English language is more built up than Indian language, that is the Sanskrit language. So, and not only build up their character but also make Indians more honest and more truthful. And once all the Indians became more honest and truthful, the job of East India Company got easy, as they can hire more and more Indians in their armies as they became truthful for them and can provide employment opportunities to them. So that is the reason why was they saying that the complete administration, all the education institutions where particular information is provided to the Indians must be in Western language, that is British language, and not in the Indian language, and for that they took various steps, and in fact the main focus of Britishers was to implement a university education or the higher education in English only. Basically they were interested in giving preference to English, their language only, and not to the Indian language, that is Sanskrit. That's all about. So everywhere they just want to implement a universal system of education. What does that mean? Whether primary level is there, whether secondary level is there, or whether we are talking about higher education, at each and every level the students needs to be taught in English language only, so that they could connect themselves with Britishers, connect themselves with the language, and that could automatically benefit the English people. Students, our next topic is what happened to the local schools. Now firstly, what were the local schools? In the ancient times, in the earlier times, the local schools were termed as pathshalas. Pathshalas used to be there where there was a particular mechanism or system where the guru sit on the top and the shishya or the students sit it down, and automatically the guru teaches to the students. So that was the system of local school. So ahead we are going to study about that. So students, till today that's it for the day, and rest we will study in our next video. Till then, thank you students, and take care.